President Joe Biden will be at the Group of 20 Leaders Summit in India this weekend, looking to make a not-so-subtle pitch to the world. And the pitch is that the United States and its like-minded allies can offer better terms of partnership than China.
There are a couple of leaders in the G20 that are going to look at the emerging U.S.-India relationship and be concerned. Of course, China is number one because a lot of what we're doing on security collaboration with India and also strategic commercial collaboration, is directly a result of some of the threats that we see from China.
After a lavish state visit by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Washington in June, Biden is also aiming to build on that relationship.
And to the everlasting bonds of friendship between India and the United States. Cheers.
Cheers.
The other G20 leaders, they look at that relationship and they, for the most part, they would either celebrate it, not care too much about it. But for China and Russia, they both would not like to see this relationship grow. And that's probably a better reason to make it happen.
Increasing ties between the United States and India is not going to go unnoticed. The trilateral summit between the United States, Japan, and South Korea, hosted by Biden at Camp David in August, would also have raised concerns for China, even though China was not mentioned by name. Experts believe that the Chinese already feel that everything US does is about sabotaging China. But leading into the G20 summit in New Delhi, US wants to send a message that, with or without China, US is the leader of the free world, and therefore the US has a commitment to engage the world.
The Chinese already feel that everything US does is about sabotaging China. So they're already convinced of that. And I think US wants to send the message that even without China, with or without China, U.S. is the leader of the free world, right? U.S. has a commitment to engage the world.
Are you expecting President Xi to attend the G20 summit?
The answer is I hope he attends the G20 summit. Thank you. All right.
But the latest development and the latest rumor out of India and out of China is that Xi Jinping is not going to India for the G20 summit. He will send Premier Li Qiang, the Chinese premier, to attend. I would say that if Xi Jinping does not go to G20 summit, it is quite an accurate reflection of the current state of the relationship between Beijing and New Delhi.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has skipped a series of international summits including last year's G20 in Bali, Indonesia during his 18-month-long invasion of Ukraine, is expected to be a no-show for the two-day G20 that kicks off on Saturday. Speculation is also mounting that Chinese President Xi Jinping could also be a no-show for the gathering that will bring leaders from some of the world's biggest economies. China has upset many countries in the Asia-Pacific region with the release of a new official map last week that lays claim to most of the South China Sea, as well as contested parts of India and Russia, and official objections continue to mount. In releasing the map now, Beijing is widely seen as signaling it has no intention of backing down on any of its claims and is making sure that its positions are fresh in the minds of other countries as they prepare for top-level meetings of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the Group of 20 Rich and Developing Nations.
They feel the border pressure already, seeing these maps, seeing these claims being made of territory that China believes historically had been part of, some of the kingdoms that they've absorbed over the years. That's very worrisome. And frankly, it's surprising, too, that some of China's biggest provocations have come right around the time that they have major summits with India. You just had the BRICS summit where the two leaders were, both engaged. Now you've got G20. So they aim to use these opportunities to get together. Most of us would think that's an opportunity maybe to climb down tensions a little bit and have a good leaders summit and see what can happen. China's taken the opposite approach. Almost every summit where the two are going to be in the same room together, they've used it as more and more opportunity to provoke in some way.
The summit will be a high-wire balancing act for PM Modi. Given New Delhi's historic ties with Moscow, its surging relationship with the West, and its hostility with Beijing over the years-long boundary dispute, PM Modi is facing a diplomatically complicated position.
When an endgame starts to come together, Prime Minister Modi is one of the few that can speak to all the world leaders that are basically going to have to agree to the outline of what an agreement looks like when we're ready to finally end this thing. So maybe we'll look at this and hope that India, holding its powder dry on Russia and having good relations still with President Biden and others, can actually have some utility there. So they'll push, they'll try to get something tougher. Maybe without Putin there, they'll be able to do it. But I think India is still going to want to maintain a decent relationship with Moscow, and let's hope that helps us all.
White House officials said that Biden saw this year's summit as an opportunity for the U.S. to present itself as adding value to developing and middle-income countries and would lay out details in New Delhi for a plan to increase World Bank and International Monetary Fund's lending power by some $200 billion. Belt and Road Initiative proposal is highly significant, and many developing nations using Chinese financing had no other option.
I think this is highly significant because for developing countries that have taken irresponsible loans or lendings from China, a key question for them is what options are available on the international financial market, right? They don't necessarily love the Chinese financing and the terms of the Chinese loans, but when they don't have other options, the Chinese banks and the Chinese loans sometimes are the only player in town. So I think this means that when U.S. provides that option and gives these countries another possibility for financing to generate infrastructure development and to strengthen their economic growth, it is highly important because that's what countries, for example, in Africa has been saying. You don't want us to take on the Chinese loans? Well, give us an alternative.
The G20 summit will also have to confront issues stemming from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. India has promoted itself not only as a bridge to the developing world, but as a rising global player and a mediator between the West and Russia.